Today we're going to be running an electrophilic aromatic bromination reaction on acetanilide, but the starting material is aniline, which is just aminobenzene, and the first thing we're going to do is react aniline with acetic anhydride to protect that NH2 group because it's so reactive. Aniline is so reactive with bromine that we might get overbromination, so we need to protect that to take that lone pair and have it resonating with the carbonyl group of the acetyl so that it doesn't donate as many electrons into the ring. So we're going to be doing this first step of the reaction in a 125 milliliter Erlenmeyer flask, and we'll need a stirring hot plate, or just a stirring plate in this case. And we need a suitable stir bar for the 125 milliliter Erlenmeyer flask. And for this reaction, the best choice will be this kind of football-shaped oblong with a little ridge in the middle that helps it spin. And I'm going to grab one of these because we are going to be measuring out some sodium hydroxide solution to quench the reaction. And we're going to need an ice bath. So I'm going to go ahead and get some ice and get that set up. Actually going to grab ice in a couple of different containers. So we're going to run the reaction in an ice bath. Which I'll do in a glass bath so that it will stir through there nicely. But we're also going to be cooling some ice cold water to be used for our washing later, so I'll set that aside for that purpose. And this will be a suitable clamp for clamping our Erlenmeyer flask so it doesn't fall over. Set that on the side. Get that centered. So that will enable me to lower that into the ice bath. And turn that on. And we can get that to stir well. I want it to be as close to the center of the hot plate as possible, or the stir plate. So that should give some nice stirring, kind of flatten that out. So, turn that stirrer off for now. So we're going to be adding 1 milliliter of aniline to 2 milliliters of acetic anhydride. And trying not to get any water in the reaction. I'll go ahead and wet that sponge down so I can use it to wipe things later. And the acetic anhydride obviously is in a bottle that's too big for dispensing. So we're going to pour some of that into a 5 milliliter beaker, or a 50 milliliter beaker. And we're going to be using these lab system fin pipettes again for dispensing. And we want 2 milliliters of acetic anhydride. And again, that's a 25 milliliter tip. So we want that at a setting of 4. I don't know why this is taped over, but it is in fact at the setting of 4 where it needs to be. So this one will be for the acetic anhydride, and this one that I dropped in the sink will be for the aniline. We get a little acetic anhydride in there. I already need 2 mils. And we will fill our automatic pipetter, and then as usual dispense 1 just to make sure there's no bubbles in the tip, And then I'm going to put 2 milliliters into my flask. And I can empty that out. And I'm going to pour that back in, which again you normally don't do. Since I know that beaker was clean, it'll be perfectly safe. Set that aside. So I'm going to let this stir so the acetic anhydride can cool to ice bath temperature before I add the aniline. And I think I may be able to get into that with the pipette without having to pour it into a beaker. We want 1 milliliter here, same 25 milliliter tip, and you can see that for 1,000 microliters we need a wheel setting of 2, so that's set at 2. And we'll just dry that off for when I dropped it in the sink. That cool. So this reaction will be very rapid. We'll need 30 milliliters of the 0.5 molar sodium hydroxide. I'm going to go ahead and weigh that out now, or measure that out rather now, so that it's ready when we need it. Doesn't have to be exact, that's more like 31 milliliters. That's close enough. Oops. Try not to crack the cap. This reaction is very similar to the reaction you ran in general chemistry last year to make aspirin, except that we're acetylating an NH2 group instead of an OH group on the benzene ring. But because acetic anhydride is so reactive, that reaction happens pretty much instantaneously, even at a low temperature. And I just want to make sure it doesn't generate too much heat, which is why I'm cooling this before adding the aniline. We're going to be filtering this with a Hirsch funnel when we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and get out a filtration assembly, a 50 milliliter filter flask, a Hirsch funnel with the number 2 filter adapter. We'll fit that funnel, and a piece of filter paper. So this will be ready when we need it. Oops. Dropping things today. Hopefully I won't drop anything expensive. And I've got another clamp, so I can set that filtration assembly up. And just spin that down. That'll be ready when we're ready for it. Grab a piece of vacuum hose. Make sure that's covered. But we don't really need the vacuum. I can turn that off for now. That should be cool enough that we can add the aniline. See if I can tilt this enough to get that tip where it's touching the aniline. No, looks like I'm going to have to pour this into a beaker as well. Aniline kind of stinks, so I don't want to get this on me. And you can see that it's kind of old. Aniline is actually a colorless liquid when it's pure. This is not colorless. So we'll let that out. And we're going to add that somewhat slowly. I'm going to group it in there. Just one squirt. And I'll empty that back into the beaker. Set that aside. We'll let that stir. And that's going to go for about 10 minutes. It's about 2:45 right now. So we'll let that go for a bit. You can see it actually solidified right away and the stirrer has stopped. So I'm going to reach in there with a glass stirring rod. See if I can dislodge that stir bar. You can see that there's pretty much a bunch of solid down there. So I got the stir bar going again, and we'll just let that sit for a little bit. Got a white solid, kind of cream color in places. And let that go. And while I can put the aniline and the acetic anhydride back where they belong. And I don't need the 0.5 molar sodium hydroxide anymore either, so I can also go back. Both of these compounds, the acetic anhydride and the aniline, are freely water soluble, so it's not really necessary to clean the beakers any more than just rinse them and let them drain and then put them away. I'm just going to set those on a stirring rod so they can drain. Slosh that around a little bit more. Stir bar is not quite as effective as it would be if we had a little more excess solvent. But it will be effective in the next step here as we add the sodium hydroxide. And just scraping that stuff down off the sides of the flask, make sure we get good mixing. This is one of the easiest reactions you'll ever run. Change that so that's out of the way. Now it's about 10 to 3. That's been going about 5 minutes. Mix it a little bit again. Let it stir.